Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez is something that has been constantly brought up. Now, I'm going to address this and I'm going to give you my opinion, which is basically my hypothesis. This is a scientific guess because I know boxing. I've done this for nearly 50 years of my life, meaning my entire life. And, when I look at this fight, first I thought it was just a lot of talking because I'm a very big fan of what Crawford has done and how he's done it and how he's climbed the ladder and how he's motivated himself and many other people who look like him, who actually want to have the skill set in which he possesses. Now I'm going to tell you where I go left with this thing when it comes down to Crawford fighting against a guy such as Canelo, someone who's been tested, someone who has the skill set, and someone who has already been in there against the best fighter in our era, in two eras. He understands what it is to get into the ring with a guy who's outskilled him and a guy who has the kind of just ring awareness and cachet that can make you look like you've never boxed before. He knows what that feels like. He's been in that situation before, and not since then has he looked that bad before. Where I'm going to go with this is what I do understand about fighting someone that's out of the weight class. If you go back to what I said when it was Deontay Wilder versus Fury, when it was Charlo versus Canelo, when it was Kell Brook versus Canelo, when it was Amir Khan versus Canelo. I just want people to understand there's this thing. I sat here on this feed and talked with Shane Mosley. Special shouts out to Shane. He won his past two fights by knockout. He's rising back to the level he wants to be at. But the fact of the matter is this. I don't want to be the guy who's sitting around saying, I told you so when it comes down to boxing. Because that means someone had to get punished for me to be right. I didn't want to be right either of those times. But the fact of the matter is this. Sometimes you can forget that there are levels for a reason and there are weight classes for a reason. I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why you don't go up this tree barking. Number 1, there's this thing called bone density that when you're stripped down, there's a skeleton that your body's left with. And that skeleton is truly what you are. Everything on top of it, the McDonald's cheeseburgers, the fried chicken, all of the other things that add to that do not make you, it's not a part of your makeup. Your bone density is the difference between you running into a car and you running into a bike. You get it? Like the difference in the impact of a punch when a person is walking around for the past 6 years at 185 pounds is not like getting into the ring with a person who's eating his way up to that. Even if his body can get to that weight without straining, the opposition couldn't get back to that weight if they cut their legs off because the density in his bones has increased immensely. You can go to the doctor and say, I want a bone density test. And the doctor will test your bones. And they will read 6.8, 7.4, 8.2. But when you've been in that weight class for the amount of time that Canelo Alvarez has been there, his bone density is reading 9.8 and maybe even 10. That means when he hits you, it feels like you've been hit by a wooden baseball bat. Go look at Callum Smith's arm when he hit him to the shoulder. Callum Smith had not lost a fight when he fought Canelo. When he hit that guy, it looked like he was breaking through his bones. He was breaking through his body. That's bone density. That's not strength. A kid could have swung his bone at Callum Smith and hit Callum with that bone, and it would have done the same thing because the density in the bones are a real matter as in matter, science, physics, it's physiology. The second reason is dexterity. When a man sits at a weight class for so long, his body continuously compresses the weight. Hence is why Virgil Hunter, who was co-coach of the 2004 Olympics with my coach, Coach Bradley, and he would not let Andre Ward go up for a reason because he understood that there takes time for the body to build up dexterity. And what is so necessary about this dexterity? Can I just go lift weights? Can I just eat a lot of food? Can I start just chopping wood? Yeah, you can. But see, the thing about dexterity is it takes years for the body to compress and compound the physical matter inside of that body. You see, now you're talking about compounding matter. You're on the mitochondria, the cellular level now. So those things take years to compose and to identify that they aren't going anywhere. Oh, we're here for good? Because typically we're going up and down so we don't get settled. And when you eat and gain weight, the next day, it's just fluid, ready to be flushed out. Now you can continue to pile on to that fluid, but it continuously stays fluid because the body can break the food down and it's just ready to be stored fat or fluid, which will release through sweating, salts, all of these different things. When it comes down to breaking down the anatomy, you don't want to talk or discuss those kind of things with me. I've been in the medical field since 1994. And when it comes down to knowing the body, I've sawed through bone, muscle, tissue. I've replaced total hips, knees, shoulders, craniotomies, hearts, all of the things that you can imagine. I've seen, I've sawed, I've bludgeoned bodies in the operating room. I have a different perspective. And not only that, then I work with training the most elite athletes on the planet Earth in the NFL. There's no type of body that I have not worked with, and there's no fight that I have not called prior to the fight, knowing exactly what the outcome was going to be. Because no matter what you feel like's going to happen, there's this thing called physics that comes into play. And it's undefeated. In the history of boxing, there are only a handful of scenarios in which that this did not take part, and partially because someone was underestimating what could possibly go wrong, and they came into the fight sleeping on the opposition. This is not the kind of guy who's going to sleep on the opposition, because If he loses, and Terrence Crawford is literally my favorite fighter right now, and has been for a good while. I appreciate what he done for the game, and I appreciate what Canelo has done. I think both of those guys have been a staple of this era. But I'm literally undefeated when it comes to picking fights. I got hired in 2014 by ESPN. Johnny Wilds. Google him. Look him up. Iceman John Scully was on my team. And we called fights. I did it for years. I know what I'm doing when it comes down to this. I know how to handicap. I know how to break a fight down. They offered me a segment. I didn't do it because they had too many watermarks on what I had to do or what I couldn't do. When it comes down to breaking fights down, I do this for real. All right. And when I look at this, I don't want to see Crawford do this. And the reason being is because when a guy like that hits you, see, your body doesn't have time to develop the kind of tissue that it'll need to deflect those kind of punches. Jermell Charlo is bigger than Crawford in a multitude of different ways, not just weight, but just a bigger person. When Crawford gets hit by a guy like that, it's not about what you want to happen. It's not about his skills. He can move and he can be slippery and you can counter. But the price tag is a lot different than when you're in there against Errol Spence, someone who's actually your size. When Canelo is raking, he's going to rake, and your ribs and your shoulder girdle, all this across here, your clavicular, stemicostal, rhomboids, feather ribs. He understands all of these different areas. When he hits them, he's going to hit them in a way that they haven't been hit before. Now, you can spar against big guys. Yeah, you got 16-ounce gloves on, and you got headgear on, mouthpieces, grease, all that stuff to protect you from what's really going to happen. Look, man, it's nothing. You don't win anything by doing this. It's nothing to win. Like, it doesn't make you greater. The fight that cemented your career was beating Errol Spence in the fashion that you did it. And I know you just get to that place where you just want to challenge yourself. But even Sugar Ray Leonard only went up one class to fight Hagler. Not 2 weight classes, but this is 3 weight classes. You can win a round 2, maybe 3 rounds. But you have to hit so much harder than you're typically having to hit to keep that animal off of you. And he's coming. Go and look at that first 5 rounds against Jermell Charlo. Go and look at the fight that he had against Callum Smith. Go and look at Kovalev's fight. These are real super middleweights and light heavyweights. This is not a game when you're talking about fighting this guy. And is it for the purse? Is it for the legacy? I'm all for seeing the Charlo fight because there's a storyline there. There's not a storyline here. This is just wanting to do it. There's a reason why you climb a weight class and then a second one. First, I'm telling you, this is not a good idea. And it's not to say that if you do it the right way, that it can't be done. This isn't the way you do it. This is not the way you do that. There are too many elements through the physiological standpoint that will not see you through, but you will not know that until it's fight night. And that is what I do know. You can pull up my channel, Master Boxing LLC, on YouTube, and you can type in every fight that has happened over the past 10 years. I've done at least 70% of them on that channel, and not one fight did I call wrong. Because not only do I know boxing, I know physiology. And if you're going up in weight, it better be one weight class, and it probably needs to be against the right individual. So you got to understand all of the facets of boxing. It's not that I know this guy is an animal. He's the best fighter in the world, bar none. I don't care what you go try to pull out of Japan and claim these guys, just the same way you tried to claim Lomachenko better than this guy, and he was undefeated, and Lomachenko hadn't even had 20 fights. I don't care what you try to do when you talk about saying because another guy's undefeated that he's better. Terrence Crawford is the best fighter in the world, and he could even be the best fighter in the weight class above him. When you start going to 60, he's the most talented pound for pound, just like Sugar Ray Robinson was. But I'm not trying to put Sugar Ray Robinson in the ring with George Foreman in 1974. You feel what I'm saying? There's a point where physiology takes over. Anatomy is a real thing. Here's the analogy that'll stick with you. The 1982 Carolina Tar Heels, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Jimmy Black, Matt Doherty, and Sam Perkins. That was the team. That was the starting five world champions, as great as they were. If you put them against the 1984 Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bob McAdoo, Jamal Wilkes, Byron Scott, they don't stand a chance. It's a great fight, but you're talking about heavyweights versus middleweights. Only in the gym can that work, not on the biggest stage. Don't do that fight. I don't care what else you choose to do on the planet. Do not fight Canelo Alvarez unless you want problems. This Thursday, we're doing a conversation in the Coach's Corner. So it's going to be about the finer points of learning and working a corner. I got to learn from 8 of the best trainers in history. Whether they're known or not known, they were the best because I know the best. Coach Soul, Coach Bradley, Coach Kenny Adams, Coach, like the list goes on and on. I got to learn from them, the Archie Moore downline, the Tommy Brooks of the world. I got to learn Don Nelson, Evander Holyfield's former coach, Coach Fleming, Coach Smitty, world-class coach, the best brains in boxing. I'm going to share things Thursday. So I'm not telling you where we're going to stream it. Just be listening out. If you're not following the page, follow the page. If you don't see it, then no big deal. But you're going to learn something that you never, ever understood about corner work and the finer points of it. So I just wanted to get up here and say what I needed to say because boxing means a lot to me. and the guys that we have to look up to, especially those who look like me, who aspire, like if my son is looking at them, I just want them to make decisions that really, really carry weight over the course of time and not stain your career jumping out of the comfort zone to prove something that is unnecessary to prove. Floyd would have never chose to do something like that because he understood there's a reason why weight classes, and see, that's why 3 generations matter. His dad would have never let him do that. Roger would have never let him do that. Jeff would have never let him do that. And that's why he understood not to do that. Now, Floyd had a big ego. He would have probably done it if it wasn't for the lineage. There's nothing to gain. Only the humiliation, like what Charlo ended up feeling. Humiliation. He can't even stick his head out. He didn't even show up at his brother's fight. And that's, when people say, oh, well, I have nothing to lose. And then you go in there and you lose and you realize how humiliating it is because you're still a fighter. Know how to work a corner and know how to move your fighter and know how to step in and say no. That's the mark of a great coach. That's all I got. Coach Bradley signing out. Be blessed to Godspeed. And I'll see you in the winner's circle. This stream right here will be going up into Instagram subscriber portal. If you want to look back and get some breakdown, that's where it'll be. You guys over here, special shouts out to my coaches in Top Trainer U. Get ready as we break down and teach you guys how to put yourself out here and attract the right kind of athletes to your program. Until next time, be blessed at Godspeed. Peace.